What are all the styles of homeschooling and how to pick which one is right for you? Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm probably a lot like you, a hesitant homeschooler. I never thought I'd be homeschooling, but here I am. 2 years ago, I decided I needed to learn a little bit more about homeschooling because the public school system just didn't seem right for us. I started interviewing homeschooling families, turned that into a podcast, and 2 years later, and over 100 homeschooling families interviewed, here I am. And what I discovered actually led me to leave my government job and fully embrace homeschooling. So I am here now to tell you what I have learned, because over 100 episodes, that's a lot of episodes for you to listen to. So it's kind of easier if I just wrap it all up and give it to you now. All right, so what are the styles of homeschooling? This was so confusing for me when I first started homeschooling because I was just like, what do you mean there's styles? I have to pick a style? Like, what do you mean? I can't even style my clothes. Like, I'm wearing this because it covers the arm fat. You know, I have no style. So what do you mean style for homeschooling now? And I kept hearing Charlotte Mason, Charlotte Mason, Charlotte Mason. I'm like, who is this lady? But what it is, the style of homeschooling is pretty much the way you present information to your children. How do they learn best? How do you enjoy educating them best? And then you just go with that. All right, so Charlotte Mason is so popular. Her style focuses on living books. And I kept hearing that term too. And I'm like, what on earth is a living book? Like, something's supposed to come out of the page at you. Are they still alive today? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So I have boiled it down. These are engaging, well-written books with narration, oftentimes about nature or somebody that actually existed in our history, but made into a children's book. They are short and focused lessons. They emphasize a cultivating love for learning and developing good habits. All right, so an example of this would be reading The Wind in the Willow for literature and then discussing its themes. Then you could nature journal by observing and sketching a bird, and then reciting poetry like Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken. So this is kind of combining different subjects, all overlapping into one another. So you're getting the literature, you're getting the art, you're getting the poetry, the writing, the reading. You could even take it a step further. You know, it's just a woven tapestry. And we order from Charlotte Mason inspired book lists all the time, and we get the books delivered right to our library. And what I love about these books is they're usually about something that has actually happened in history or a person that's actually existed in history. And it's a very rich story, but brought down to a level that a child can understand, and me. And it's just filled with lots of like depth to the book. We have a style called classical. I'm not a classical style homeschooler, if you couldn't tell, but classical is very popular, especially classical conversations. You may have heard of that as a curriculum. So what the description of the classical style is it's based on the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Okay, so you've got grammar, foundational knowledge, logic is critical thinking, and rhetoric, the expressing of ideas. This is a heavy focus on classical literature, history, and languages like Latin or Greek. It's not flying in my household, but so many people love the classical conversations curriculum. I know they have the history timeline. It's like a 13-minute song about everything that's ever happened in history, all in the timeline. It's a cool song, and the kids that do classical conversations have to memorize that early on, which is probably pretty boring for them, but helpful later on as you're putting things that you're learning into context. So anybody can check that song out on YouTube, Classical Conversations, the timeline song. Yeah, this is a great structured curriculum. People love it. Your kid is going to be very well-rounded with literature and all that. No, maybe they recently added a math, but usually you add your own math, whatever math you enjoy doing. And Classical Conversations is actually, they are groups that meet in your local area. So you can contact, whatever website for Classical Conversations, and they'll find you a group in your area that's actually holding these meetings. And you go to them maybe once a week or once a month. I think they're usually once a week. And you're learning there and then kind of sent home with your assignments for the rest of the week. But you're doing group work, and it actually sounds really cool. Game schooling, we use game game schooling all the time. So this is using board games, card games, and role-playing games as tools for learning, engaging children through play to develop academic, social, and critical thinking skills. So an example of this would be playing Monopoly Junior to practice math and money management, then Ticket to Ride for geography skills, and then using a game like Codemaster for programming basics. I mean, how cool is that? You can learn coding through games. Some of our favorite games that we play, let's see, we've got Skip-Bo, we play all the time, and that's great because you are doing the sequence of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then you kind of have to repeat it again, but you've got 4 different blocks that you're trying to get up to 12, and you've got Skip-Bo cards that are the wilds, and you have to get through your deck of the stockpile before your partner. So you're doing strategy. It's really cool. My son is 6 and he's been playing that one for at least a year now. And Double Shutter is one that we got a couple months ago. We love that. And it is fantastic for math. And you just roll the dice. You have 2 rows of, they look like dominoes that you need to get down. They're 1 through 9. And each row has a certain amount of points that if they're still up at the end of the game, add those points up, and whoever has the lowest score wins. But these are great for math skills. My son will keep score for 5 games. And so he's got his little calculator out and his pen and he's doing all the math the whole way through. So we love Double Shutter. Another cool one that we use is Mancala is a cool game if your kids like the dexterity, holding the jewels and putting them in the little buckets. Also, yeah, he does love Monopoly, but like nobody wants to play Monopoly with him, but it keeps going because then he rents you spaces when you don't have any more money. All right, moving on. Unschooling. I bet you've heard of this. This is a popular one. Unschooling is a child-led, interest-driven learning without a formal curriculum. It relies on life experience, exploration, and natural curiosity as the primary tools for education. So an example of this would be exploring marine biology after a trip to the aquarium, learning math by baking and doubling the recipe, and writing down stories inspired by a favorite video game. We definitely unschool a lot. I started with all the box stuff, and we still do it when we think of it, but we definitely are not rigid on the box curriculum anymore. If you want to know why, you can check out my video, the number 1 mistake homeschoolers make and how to avoid it. But we use unschooling, like we took a walk yesterday out there's a mountain behind our house, and I know everyone's not as lucky to have that. Although 10 years ago, I would not have said I'm lucky to live on the end of a mountain. I'm embracing it now. So we were taking a hike yesterday, and there's snow on the ground, and my son brought his little digital camera and was taking pictures of the animal tracks. And, we came back and we're trying to figure out which animal had which track, and you can really go into that as far as, okay, is this a coyote? Let's see if there's any documentaries on coyotes. Is there any books we can take out of the library about coyotes? Where do they sleep? What do they eat? Do they hibernate? What time are they nocturnal? How long do they keep their young with them? What do they feed their young? How long is the gestation period? All of this stuff. What are they hunted by? What do they hunt? It's all so cool, and it's related to what's going on in your life at the time. So the beauty of the unschooling process is that what you're learning about is relevant to what's going on in your life at that exact moment. So it's putting that information into context for your child. If he was just opening up his book, science, saying this is a coyote track, this is what they do with their young, it wouldn't be half as interesting as knowing, oh my God, there are coyotes making tracks through our backyard. Let's see, what should we look for where they sleep? What does a coyote den look like? Would there be pups out at this time of year? It's really been like my favorite style so far, but we'll get into that later. Number 5 would be a Montessori style of schooling. The Montessori style of homeschool emphasizes hands-on, self-paced learning in a prepared environment. This encourages independence, respect for the child's interests, and practical life skills. So an example of this would be using sandpaper letters to teach phonics, practicing math with a Montessori bead frame, and organizing a child-friendly kitchen shelf for independent snack making, which is what I should have right now because these kids just keep coming in here. This sounds like a really cool style, and I can't wait to have our Q&A sessions with our experts because I'd love to get more into this, what the day-to-day looks like for the Montessori style homeschool. All right, number 6. Waldorf. This sounds very uppity, doesn't it? I practiced the Waldorf. Okay, but I do have an episode with Lindsay, and she explained the Waldorf educational style, and it didn't sound uppity at all when she explained it. It's just the name. So the Waldorf style homeschool focuses on creativity, imagination, and holistic development, often delays formal academics and incorporates art, crafts, and storytelling. Well, that sounds fun. That doesn't sound uppity at all. All right, so this would be an example would be like knitting and crocheting to develop fine motor skills, watercolor painting to explore seasonal changes, and telling oral stories instead of reading them from books. Oh my God, that sounds so fun. Yeah, I remember really loving it when Lindsay explained the Waldorf style to me. So hopefully she will be on for our Q&A with the experts when we do our Waldorf style. Okay, number 7, unit studies. These are huge. I love unit studies. I have used the ones from Treehouse Schoolhouse, and her name's Lindsay as well. Different Lindsay though. She's been on my podcast, and she kind of went into how she developed this sort of educational model, and she uses the Charlotte Mason inspired way to present the unit studies, which I love. But basically a unit study it integrates multiple subjects around a central theme or topic, encourages hands-on projects, field trips, and interdisciplinary learning. So an example of this would be a space exploration unit where you read about astronauts, build a model rocket, and visit a planetarium, or a weather unit where you keep a weather journal, build a do-it-yourself barometer, and watch weather patterns. And in no part of this will you tell your children that we probably never went to the moon. Maybe somebody went to the moon. And no part of this will you ever tell your child that Neil Armstrong probably didn't go to the moon and we can manipulate weather. That's like the conspiracy theory style homeschooling, and that is one I don't have listed on this, but you all know what I mean. I love unit studies. Treehouse Schoolhouse, like I said, we have done her Christmas curriculum. That one is Christian based, so is her Easter. So just know that going in, if that's not what you're into, you definitely don't want those. But her nature studies are not. I don't believe her nature studies touch on religion at all. These are awesome because what our day would look like. The unit study, for instance, we did the fall, and it was 13 weeks, which we did not get through 13 weeks. So now I have a whole new unit study to do next fall. You know, we did about 6 weeks of them because we take longer than a week to do them. We're unschooling too. So we'd start with a book that I ordered from her book list, and I had it delivered to my library. So I'd pick all those up at one time. I'd read the children's book to them. They were always wonderful books, like about arachnids, which are like spiders. I learned that. Deciduous trees. I had to learn what that was. I might have forgotten. It either has the leaves on all year long or it doesn't. I think deciduous, their leaves fall off. So we did a unit on the trees, we did a unit on arachnids, a unit on the moon. That was cool. So we have all these different topics each week that we're doing. And then within that topic, we're reading the book. I'm asking him questions. There is a piece of art, a famous art from some time in history. We're looking at the artwork. I'm asking him questions about that. Sometimes we're replicating the artwork, or we are going out into our nature walk and bringing our nature journal and drawing a piece of art that we create from the outside. We are listening to a song from maybe a time period that is relevant to whatever we're learning about, and we will grab our globe or a map and look at where the artist or the singer of the song is from and compare that to where we live now. And then there's usually a project at the end too, whether it be like baking or some sort of art or putting something together or just building on our nature journal. So there's just a lot of different subjects going on centered around this one theme. And I just love it because I was learning about nature, things I never knew. Apples was one of them. So that was cool. We did some cool projects with the apples, cutting them up and putting them in paint and making apple pictures. I just love unit studies. And I've only done a couple of Lindsay's, but I know that these are a thing. So there are more out there. And I'm going to create a unit study too on the Hudson River because I live right near it. And no one ever told me about it until I was coming back from the Bronx Zoo and someone was telling me all about the Hudson River. I was floored. I never knew anything about it. Number 8, eclectic. The eclectic style homeschooling is a customized approach that blends methods and resources to suit the family's needs. They're flexible and often combine structured and unstructured learning. All right, so an example of this would be using Matthew C for math, story of the world for history, and supplementing with nature walks and art projects. We're using Matthew C right now. Actually, we do a lot of nature walks. I haven't used story of the world, but I've heard of that curriculum. I'm interested in that one. But yeah, basically you're taking part that's structure and then kind of unschooling. So I would say eclectic is combining your box curriculum with an unschooling for the rest of your day. That's it. I figured it out. Traditional school at home. This is what you don't want to do. So this mimics the conventional school environment at home with textbooks, workbooks, and a set schedule, more often structured and teacher directed. So an example of this would be box curriculum like a Becca. You have a set schedule like 8:30 start time every day, and that's when you start your language arts, and then completing a daily workbook with exercises and tests. I'd say don't do this one. Enough said. You left the school system for a reason. Don't bore your child. All right, project-based learning. This centers on student-driven projects that address real-world problems or questions, encourages creativity, collaboration, and practical application of knowledge. So an example of this one would be designing a miniature garden to learn about the ecosystem, building a cardboard bridge to explore engineering, or researching and presenting on a historical figure. This is awesome. I think we use this too because a couple weeks ago, my son found some STEM projects that, you can put together a wind-powered car, a solar-powered car, a remote control car. They're all apart in a box, and then he puts them together, and he found those, and he was doing that for 2 weeks straight. And you know what? I let him. We didn't open up our reading. I read books to him, but we didn't open up our formal reading curriculum or our math really in that time because I figured he's doing it all as he's learning that. He's trying to read the directions, and I'm trying to read them to him. He is counting out the screws. He is following the pictures. He's learning about technology. And, if we wanted to take it a step further, we could have really looked up things in history about the time, who invented this, where are they from? Yeah, I really like project-based learning. And I think as your kids get older, that will become more and more important for them to really find what they're into and what they're good at. 11. Road schooling and world schooling. These are so cool. I have had a world schooler and a road schooler on my podcast, both separately. On the Unhustle Bustle was our road schooler, and the world schooler was Jen. This incorporates travel and exploration as the primary method of education. It focuses on cultural immersion, geography, and history through real life experiences. So an example would be visiting Gettysburg to learn about the Civil War, snorkeling in the Florida Keys to study marine life, and using maps and budgeting while traveling. Yeah, Jen, they just flew to somewhere out in the Amazon and were living on a raft for months. It was pretty crazy. The Unhustle Bustle, they actually sold their house and bought a bus and turned it into a house, and they just go and they stay at places along the way, and they let their kids kind of map out where they're going and the budgeting and what they're going to see, and they read along the way. It's pretty awesome. Number 12 is Reggio Emilia. I don't know. This is child-led and project-based, emphasizing collaboration and exploration. So it values art, sensory experiences, and documenting the learning process. I haven't actually had anyone on my podcast that does this per se. I've never heard of that term before as I was researching different styles, but I think a lot of them kind of overlap with each other. So an example would be creating a community map with recycled materials, exploring light and shadow with flashlights and translucent objects, and building a birdhouse inspired by curiosity and nesting birds. So yeah, I think that can kind of blend with some of the other styles that we've already talked about. 13 would be nature-based learning or outdoor learning. So this centers on the outdoor activities like hiking, gardening, and environmental studies, promoting physical activity and a connection with nature. And an example of this would be identifying and cataloging plants on a hike, raising chickens, or planting a vegetable garden, and tracking animal footprints for a nature study. Oh, I swear we did that yesterday. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And again, they all overlap with each other in some way because I've talked to people on my podcast that have actually started outdoor schools, and they spend the entire day outside. One is in Vermont, somewhere where it's cold, and they're just saying, bundle up, bundle up, buttercup, you're staying outside all day. And they start fires and they learn about fire safety. And my son was in one in the fall where it wasn't quite so cold, but they made fire with flint and steel, I believe is the term. Yeah, they're just out in nature all day, climbing trees and really just working together and really having that creative play. So those are your 13 styles of homeschooling. I definitely use a combination, and I think you'll find that you will too. It's no fun to stay on one rigid, strict schedule or path. So changing it up is awesome. We definitely unschool in this house. I love unit studies. We do outdoor schooling all the time. And we definitely use a little Charlotte Mason in with the books that we like to read, and we game school. So look, there's 5 of them out of the 13 that I use. And like my son's only 6. So we've only been at this a little bit. And I think that these are all beautiful ways to learn, and they're not happening in the school system. And it's time to ask why. So thank you so much for watching. If you found this video useful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss my upcoming content. And don't forget to check out the Homeschool How To podcast, interviews with homeschoolers. I will see you in the next video.